Hey, thanks, Tony, for having us. It's such an honor for us with some of our kids, not all of them, to participate in Free to Believe. You know, the freedom to believe means nothing if we don't have the courage to stand up for our beliefs. And it's vital that we stand strong as dads, as moms, for the freedoms that we have in America.
You know, we've got our kids around us, and what we discovered when we were kids is that the things that we caught from our parents were far more impactful in our lives than the things that we're taught. So we're doing everything that we can to stand boldly so that our kids and hopefully our grandkids and our great-grandkids will stand with courage, because now, more than ever, in the culture, we need to stand strong, not just for religious liberty, but so that our kids will see us standing strong, and then they will take a stand as well.
Ronald Reagan gave a great quote one time, kiddos, and he said, "Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our kids in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on to you to do the same. Or one day, we'll spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it was once like to live in the United States where men were free." We want you to experience those same freedoms, and we want your children and your children's children to experience the same freedoms. So you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna take a stand, along with Tony Perkins, the Family Research Council, and by the way, everybody look at the camera. If we could see Tony Perkins right now, kiddos, he is the most handsome man on the planet. Everybody give a thumbs up to Tony Perkins. All right, guys, you're now free. Go, have fun, enjoy yourselves.
You're free to play.
Free to play, but soon you'll be free to take a stand. One of the things that we find as Jason and I are traveling and speaking around the country is that a lot of people, they say, well, I believe these things, but I don't want to say anything because I don't want to lose a job, or I don't want to, even if it's a pastor, lose my ministry, or maybe a politician, I don't want to lose my position of influence. And that's where we really come in and say, you know what? For the first time in American history, believing and exercising our freedom to believe may actually cost us something. You have to recognize that there's that inner fear in all of us. And that fear is rooted in the fear of man and a man-pleasing spirit. That's the spirit of the age. And we're so afraid to offend man that we are actually, in essence, offending God. So we have to be willing to take a stand.
And this is where parenting comes in. My brother and I got a chance to watch my dad and mom. We got a chance to live in their home for 18 years before we went off to college. It wasn't the things that they taught us that we remember most. It's the things that we caught from them and the way that they lived their lives.
Well, when we were kids, our dad was faithful to go to abortion clinics and minister. He wasn't one of those guys that was yelling and screaming and all of this, but he was a minister to these mothers. And Jason and I would see mothers just weeping and say, thanks for being here. I'm going to choose life. We grew up with this. And then when we got to Charlotte, North Carolina, Jason and I got a call from our dad, because at the time, our dad was street preaching at one of the busiest intersections in our city, and a lot of the city leaders did not like it. So they put together this little ordinance called a parade ordinance, which basically in the ordinance, if 5 or more people are there, you have to apply for a permit. And my dad said, that is wrong. We have the freedom to preach, so I need you and your brother to recruit 3 other guys and meet me out at the intersection. So we show up to this intersection at 5 o'clock. It was hysterical. Dad had a little sound system set up. It was just him standing there. And Jason and I come rolling up. Our 3 buddies pull in the parking lot, and they come rolling up. So now there's 6 of us. We're breaking the ordinance. Dad said, okay guys, here's the deal. I've already called the police on myself. As soon as they start rolling up, I'm gonna start preaching. They are obligated to give us all a warning. They're gonna warn you guys, you're welcome to just leave. And he said, and then when they get to me, I'm not gonna leave. I'm gonna keep preaching, and they're either gonna find me or take me to jail. I don't know what they're gonna do. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna sue them. And then I'm gonna get this ordinance struck down, and I'm gonna protect you and your children, my grandchildren, with their freedom to believe and their freedom to live out their beliefs. And sure enough, 2 police cars pull by, and the officers come up, and the first officer goes to Jason and says, you're in violation of such and such an ordinance. We need to ask you to leave. And Jason just, okay, outie. And Jason left like a sissy.
Don't you judge me.
Then they got to me, and I left too. And then they got to our next buddy, and he left. But the other 2 buddies that we had stood there and were just like, no, I can't leave. I'm gonna stand right here and support Reverend Benham. They said, okay, fine. They got to my dad. My dad stopped preaching for just a few minutes, listened to them, and just said, okay. And he just started preaching again. It was hysterical. They issued $5,000 fines to all 3 of them My dad then took those 3 fines, sent it to his attorney. Dad's attorney then sends an official letter to the city and said, basically, what you've done is wrong, and we're now filing suit. They filed a lawsuit. Anyway, literally within a couple of weeks, the city reached out to Dad's attorneys and says, we're dropping it all. We just don't want you guys to pursue this, because they knew they were wrong. And I remember after all the dust settled, Dad said, you know what? Those who forsake the law praise the wicked, but those who keep it resist them. When it came time to taking our freedoms away, it took a man to say, no, I'm gonna stand and resist.
And what a father does is, if he's out camping with his kid and a wolf comes along, he's not trying to give the wolf a steak just to try to make it happy. He's gonna deal with that wolf. That's what a father does. He provides and he protects.
He's not also trying to converse with the wolf, to find common ground with the wolf. He doesn't do that. And in John chapter 10, verse 10, Jesus was clear how you're supposed to treat wolves. And then later on in the book of Acts, Paul even spoke and he said to the Christians, he's talking to Christian leaders here, there are going to be wolves that are going to come in and try to devour the flock. And so what we've got to understand as spiritual leaders, as political leaders, as just family leaders, we have to be willing to recognize wolves. And those are the ones that want to strip and take away the God-given freedoms that we have. And we have to confront them and not be afraid and not try to find common ground with them. We say, no, God gives us our freedoms. We have the freedom to believe and exercise those beliefs. And if you try to take those beliefs, I am going to resist you. The role of government is to restrain evil that good may flourish, or to punish evil and praise those who do right. What happens when government now, or God's people pull out of government? Now government flips those around and they begin to punish good and praise evil. The Apostle Paul taught young Timothy, he said that the church is the pillar and support of the truth. That we are salt and light. Jesus says we are salt and light, but if the salt loses its saltiness, it's fit for nothing but to be thrown out and trampled under the feet of men.
But if church is something that you are, and testimony is something that you live, then being the church wherever you are is what's most important. And so that's why we say that plumbers, preachers, politicians, practitioners, whoever it is, stay-at-home moms, be the church right there. Be the church. And what we like to say is the church is family on mission. Speaking of one practical thing, is the FRC's cultural impact teams.
I was getting there.
In our church, you're going to talk about that? I want to talk about that.
No, because I like it.
I want Tony to be impressed with me.
No, Tony, you'll be impressed with me.
Our own church is doing one of FRC's cultural impact teams where they've got, it's basically how to impact your culture in a box. It's the coolest thing ever. And so that you simply get a person or a family or whoever in your church that can actually run the thing, and it teaches them how to get your church engaged in the culture. There is no better missionary that needs to be supported than that person who's running the FRC's cultural impact.
Who is it in your church that really has a heart as a missionary to that realm of society? Government is a mission field. Government is a minister of God. And if the true ministers don't go to that mission field, then that no longer will be a minister of God. It'll actually be a minister of Satan, because it'll flip around what is good and what is evil. That's why we've got to be involved.
This presidential election coming up in 2016 is so important. If you don't vote, you're getting this.
Well, the thing is, the thing is in the past, stop for a second. No, the church, we've got to get back to our original mission and vision and purpose. We are the pillar and support of the truth in every area of society. We need to lead with brokenness, live with compassion, be willing to live out this faith, bring value to our city, stop building ourselves so much, and start sowing back into our nation. You can say, well, that's just politics. It's dirty. Well, yeah, politics is the art of compromise. It's the struggle, it's the power struggle. But your civic duty and your civic responsibility as a Christian is to restrain evil that good may flourish for your children and your children's children, and for government to truly be a minister of God.
But if we take a stand as moms and as dads, then our kids, Lord willing, God will come through and our kids will be protected. So thank you, Tony, for the opportunity for us to speak to this conference, Freedom to Believe. We appreciate you, your ministry, everything that you have to do. What do you?
And right now, in 2016, we are free to believe. Let's keep it that way for many years to come.